Hey everybody, this is Keith Hancock alongside my partner, confidant and pal, Christine DeVita.
And welcome back to another episode of Behind the Counter.
Good evening, Christine DeVita. How you doing today?
Hello, Mr. Hancock. How was your week?
It's going good. I was having a missed football season today, even though I know you could care less about it. Not really your wheelhouse, but when you're a fan, even though the Giants suck. We should do a leadership episode coming up, and I'll compare the restaurant industry to bad coaching in football. But so Christine, a lot going on in the world still. A lot of those things either impact the restaurant industry or we try to help impact it. Everybody knows what's going on in Ukraine right now, unless they're living in a box or have just woke up from a coma. A lot of stuff going up in Massachusetts. The article starts out Russian invasion of Ukraine. But restaurateur Jose Andrews, who runs World Central Kitchen, a nonprofit nutritional organization who became particularly well known during the pandemic, is in Poland right now, cooking food and helping prepare food because a lot of the people went to, basically, from my understanding, what happened in Ukraine is the men stayed behind the fight for the country and a lot of the women went up to Poland.
Yes.
While that happened.
Yes.
So this guy has flown out to Poland and he's preparing food and packaging it, either dine-in options for free or dine-in more like, a soup kitchen type atmosphere, or packaging food and giving it off to them. There's a lot of local restaurants, and he's from Massachusetts. There's a lot of great restaurants up in Boston that are holding fundraisers, either dine to donate or a percentage of their sales or the whole profit for the day, whatever the case might be. There's a couple different versions of it, but all sending money off to Ukraine and Poland to help them, which I think is phenomenal. Couple shout outs. God, as I know Christine loves Boston, maybe she ate at a couple of them, who knows. Goldilocks Bagels.
Nope. Polish
American Citizen Club Boston.
Nope.
Yum Bunnies Cake sounds great as Easter's approaching. It just makes you think of Easter. Blacker's Bake Shop, and a whole bunch of others, Laughing Monk Cafe, all sending out proceeds of their dining going out to Boston. So good stuff, Massachusetts, good stuff, Boston. Great job. Also up in Boston, we have Dine Out. Boston returns with higher prices to support the restaurant industry. So we've talked a lot about how, inflation and things are impacting the restaurant industry. So organizers said lunch prices have gone up by $7, some $8 to support the recovery of local restaurants. The number of courses and details vary by restaurant. Special dine-out menus will be offered. 22, 27, or 32 dinner menus will be offered, or for lunch. Sorry, 22, 27, 32 for lunch, and dinner menus will be offered at 36, 41, and 46.
I don't think those prices are that bad, to be honest. I would definitely go. I wonder if any of the restaurants that I usually go to in Boston are actually doing this.
Not too bad, but those are the deals. So they're doing, some restaurants are starting to offer like prefix menus.
Right,
to offset the cost for the guest. But if you go off that prefix menu, that's where you kind of are paying the inflation prices right now.
They say more than 120 restaurants are participating, and it's through March 13th to March 26th.
Yeah. Interesting. I was trying to find some more details on it. Like, I wonder if they're doing group purchasing of food, working together to buy in bulk or something.
Yeah.
Couldn't find much detail on that, but I thought it was interesting how a lot is going on up in that city, and they're all partnering up, either helping across the seas or trying to create good options for people to dine out on a more affordability, which is very cool. Yep. Another thing on the front, Starbucks up, and I love following Starbucks because I always say this, I think it's a great barometer for the industry, where it's going. Starbucks up in Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo. 3
locations are now unionized up there.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, I don't know what union it is. It's probably UFCW. I remember they were making a big push to get into restaurants in New York City back in like 2009, 2010. They tried to get into a restaurant in Times Square I was running. They didn't get one vote to go for it because the benefits we were offering outnumbered what they could offer them. So why would anybody have paid a dues? I'm a little leery of some restaurant unions personally. I don't know. Have you ever worked in a union environment? I have not.
No. But the New York Times covered this
Really?
Starbucks is moving to oust workers in Buffalo, union supporters say. Some employees who back unionized efforts have been told they must increase their work availability to leave. The company cites scheduling issues.
Mm,
So Starbucks is now retaliating.
interesting. You know, so the UFCW made a big push back in 2009, 2010 to unionize a lot of Times Square restaurants because they're all big box restaurants.
Hmm.
And every single one of those guys, I remember seeing the pamphlets around the store and stuff like that, and getting to understand who these guys were because I used to go out on the sidewalk and literally they had the rat in front of the restaurant a couple days,
Really?
like on the construction sites, and I had to go out and fight these guys, and they are nasty, and you could tell some of them were like paid protesters,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, these guys were crazy. Every single guy that was at the top of the union who was pushing are all went to jail a couple years later for laundering money from the union or dipping into pensions funds and doing all sorts of crooked stuff.
Yeah.
So New York City, I don't think has to worry about unionizing anymore because their labor laws probably outweigh what anything any union could do for them, for the workers anymore at this point. So they'd almost be kind of silly to pay a dues for no reason.
Right.
I remember one time I was interviewing to be the general manager at one of the restaurants that skate around, that are around Rockefeller Center, right around the ice skating rink.
Okay.
And it was owned by, I believe, Restaurant Associates, but don't quote me on that. And we were talking, we're halfway through the interview, and she told me, "Oh, and we're unionized." And started, and we were like, "Oh, you know how you can't ask a busboy to run a drink, and you can't ask a server to sweep the floors." And I got up in the middle of the
Yeah.
interview, and I walked out, and she's like, it was going good
Where are
up
you
until then.
going?
She's like, "Where you going?" I said, "Oh, I don't do union." She's like, "No, no." I said, "No." I said, "There's really no point in us continuing the conversation." I said, "I'm just
Yeah,
not going to do
exactly.
this."
No, I can't work in an environment like that. There's no way.
So,
The union for Starbucks is Workers United. It's an affiliate of the Giant Service Employees International Union,
mm,
and they've named themselves Starbucks Workers United.
interesting.
Yeah.
Starbucks Workers United. Well, hopefully it works out
Yep.
for them.
We'll see.
We'll see how that
I
goes.
don't. I
There
don't
will
put
be
too
more
much
news on it.
into it. Yeah, there'll definitely be more news circling around Starbucks and their employees unionizing. I don't like
Mm,
that. I mean, you get into the restaurant business, you know, the restaurant business is you have to be a certain type of person, right,
yeah,
to be in this business. Okay, there is no room for a union. Okay, I mean,
definitely
we
not.
were we were interviewing a general manager today or yesterday, right?
Hmm.
And you ask them behavioral and situational questions, right? And our recruiter turns around and goes, how do you handle employees who tell you that's not my job?
Hmm.
And she
How
goes,
do
on
you?
the onset of the interview, I will tell them, you might be a busboy or you might be a server, but that doesn't mean you're not going to wash dishes or run food or scoop ice cream. These four walls, it's everybody's responsibility.
Right.
Period on the start. Thought that was great. You can't do that anymore.
That's the way. That's the way the restaurant goes. Well, you can. It depends on where you work now, but that's where they work best. Cross training, interchanging people. Cross training is huge to a restaurant success. The
Absolutely.
more positions you can teach every person to learn. I mean, you're on Long Island. They don't operate that way. They're not. They don't. The labor laws, I don't think, are as stringent as New York City. I can tell you, in Jersey, they're not.
Well, it's the same thing for Long Island that it is in New York City, right? So
Hmm.
I don't, it's been a couple of years since I've been in the restaurants itself,
Hmm.
operations wise. But I remember at one point I couldn't ask and this is non union, this is just the labor laws. I couldn't ask, let's say, a busser to go do something that was outside of his job scope, his
Where
job
was this?
description.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yep. Yep. I remember that because we had a big company wide meeting on it.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
yeah, couldn't I think it had all to do with how they were getting paid. That's what it
Mm.
was. Tipped versus non-tipped. If you were non-tipped, I could tell you to do everything under the sun that was outside of your job scope. If you were a tipped employee, you only worked exactly what your job description stated. That goes for both Long Island and the city.
That's right. I remember that at the tail end of my full service stint.
Hmm.
From what I remember, though, is you could actually, in theory, have had a hourly server or bartender clock out and clock in for a minimum wage if you had them do tasks with different
Correct.
job codes.
Yes. But then that but then that all falls on something else you have to manage as a manager.
Right.
right? So now you have to have this person clock out because you want them to go sweep a floor that's not on
Mm-hmm.
their job description,
Mm-hmm.
right? For 10 minutes. How long does it take to sweep a floor? 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
now you have to manage them that they're not milking the clock.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like, what more do we need? How much more leeway do we have to give these guys? Like, you're hired as a server. These are your responsibilities. I'm the manager. These are the four walls. You do what the restaurant needs. End of story. You don't want to help out? Tell me, no, I'm not doing that. And then, as far as I'm concerned, you will see it reflected in your schedule next time. But I don't have patience to sit there and clock you out to clock you in for $15 an hour to sweep a floor for 10 minutes. Like, that to me is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. I really appreciated the article you shared today. 70% of employees are saying no thanks to a promotion, and here's what they want instead. Very similar to what we've been talking about in past episodes. Yes, employees want to feel good. It says that it
Yes.
was I was interesting. It basically, I think part of it is the young generation. I think COVID shaped some of this, right? So what do people want? They want to be able to work anywhere, basically,
Yeah.
which our industry can provide. Now, this really wasn't. This was a good article. It wasn't just about the restaurant industry. It was what people are looking for in general. Do you
Correct.
think that in recruitment you find a lot of this stuff these days that people have
I,
had
you know
come up
what?
with unrealistic expectations for what our industry can provide in terms of these type of things?
Let me tell you something. We're recruiting in Maryland, offsite catering for two executive sous chefs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I had sent out an email to somebody that I know who is looking in Maryland, and shot him over the job description and said, "Hey, I think you'd be a great candidate."
Mm-hmm.
Same old email. Emails me back. As a sous chef, I'm too stressed out. I'm looking for something that is less mentally draining than what I'm doing now.
Okay.
I said, okay. I had no answer.
Less mentally draining.
Yeah, he wanted something that was just a little bit more. Um, he didn't want something that was very demanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, you're a sous chef.
Right.
What do you want to do? Do you want a sous chef in your kitchen
Right.
and
Do you want
just
to work
cook for
from
your
home?
family?
Do you want to cater?
And
Send
that
it
was
over
another
and
thing. He's
pack
like,
it up and dry
I
ice.
only want to work. He goes, the salary is great. He's like, but yeah, if I could have that salary, I only work 3 to 4 days a week. And I just literally was reading this email and I said out loud to myself, what is happening to this industry?
I feel like chefing is going to start to become more and more gig work, though. That
You
seems
know
to be the
what?
tone. Or they
It's
open up their own, or they open up their own restaurant. I don't know, and do it, which
well,
would
yeah, if
actually
they
be
open up
more
their own
hours.
restaurant, they're working 7 days a week. Otherwise,
Right.
they're going to lose everything. So, well, the survey respondents cited that the myriad benefits of remote work, right, which is what
Mm-hmm.
these guys are looking for in this article, right? Time savings due to less commuting,
Mm-hmm.
better work life balance, flexible work schedule, and saving money. Now, the saving money I can understand because the price of gas
Right.
has gone up and it has affected everything travel wise, including flights, which is crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of different demands out there that
Mm-hmm.
everybody is looking for. 28% anticipate changing jobs in the next 6 months. 24 reported having left their jobs in the past year. Employers who think that means the great resignation is waning should think again. So there's a lot going on in the job market. It's not as easy as it was pre-COVID to find employees to fill positions.
Right.
They have a list of demands no matter what industry you're in. We had a client in Manhattan, and pre-COVID, he was doing 3,000 to 3,200 covers a day, breakfast, lunch. COVID hits is down to 900. Um, his office building that they're connected to, that CEO actually turned around and said, if you don't come back to work, you're not going to have your job. You need to
Mm.
come to the office every single day.
Oh yeah, I remember
He
that.
got
That was a
annihilated.
while ago. But he got annihilated.
That was
Why?
like
Yeah, 4 or 5 months ago.
it was like a month ago. He got annihilated because nobody told him that everybody was coming back to work. So
Oh.
now he's operating his location
Mm-hmm.
for breakfast and lunch, and he's up to 3,000 covers a day again.
Mm.
And he just literally went from 900 to 2,000 in one day, and the next day went to 3,000 because
Wow.
everybody went back to work.
I was confusing that with a different thing we talked about, I think, a couple episodes back.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a good problem to have, you know? People just need to, I guess, be understanding. I guess I'm old school. I like waking up and going to work, brewing the coffee, grabbing the bag, you know what I mean? Getting on the train. Doesn't bother me. Maybe it is a difference in the way that we were bred. I don't know, you know?
I'm
But
assuming it is.
we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Some people still do like to get up and go to work, though. You know, there's always going to be people that don't want to travel, which I hate. You know, that's not me. And there's people that don't want to sit home. You know, there's people who just aren't homebodies. That's just who they are. You know, I've seen people on the other side of the spectrum, corporate chefs that I've worked with. You've probably seen them where they just travel the globe all the time. I know a guy that did it for 20 plus years, opening new restaurants for different companies. Literally, like rented, like had a room that he rented wherever he was, and was just a different city. It all depends on the cloth that you're cut from.
Yep. Nowadays, that would never happen.
No,
No.
definitely not.
It's just a whole different mentality. And as blessed as we are at D&H,
Hmm.
it also makes the job market a little bit tougher to kind of navigate and find quality people to send over to our clients.
I mean, with that, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. We can't change it. It's
Nope.
changing us.
I always say, well, I used to say, change occurs. It's how you react to the change where the success lies, because the change will still be there if you don't like it. But I think it'll be a give and take situation too. You know,
Right.
I can tell you that looking at the city every day, people are going back to work.
Right.
That is happening. So, you know, some of these articles are obviously painting a picture of some extreme things because there's going to be jobs you just got to go to work for. They'll never Restaurant industry will never be a sit at home job. Being a building engineer will never be a sit at home job. You have to go to the building on some levels. Being a dentist, well, I don't know. Some of them have their offices in their house. You ever go to those guys? They got the little built-in office. So I was like, that's nice.
Oh yeah. They're all over Long Island. They're all over Long Island. You go look for a dentist and it's like you're going to someone's house and I'm like, "Oh boy."
Wow, they were ahead of the curve. You know,
Oh yeah.
from those dentists, those psychiatrists, and those dudes that work from home. Um, Anyway, Christine, all good stuff just with what's going on out there. Regards. Hopefully, our listeners enjoyed hearing our take on some of the top stories happening in our industry and outside of our industry a little bit tonight. So, tonight, the episode is titled Deep Fried Demand. Today's episode is about a road to success on how to utilize modern concepts following the successful course of other well known brands. So, history has shown us, Christine, that the fast food is a business venture that can bring financial benefits to success to anyone. People love restaurant business. I know that you and we have had the discussion where when we're at a party or someone talks about what do you do for a living? I'm a barber, I'm a whatever. As soon as we pop up, we're in the restaurant, it's like 9 million questions all the time. People always want to know what's going on.
Always. Always.
There's a lot of history and culture behind chain restaurants that I think people don't really get or understand, you know?
Right.
You have fast food has a lot of history behind it. You have Ray Kroc, the McDonald's
Yes.
guy. They made a movie about it. The founder,
Loved it.
great movie. I watched it the other day, actually. I find it very motivational, even though he's like
Really.
the villain that you want to see win
I
because he's a
know.
villain and he's a guy who couldn't make it because he wasn't
Correct.
successful. I think it was like the mid 50s when he really took off on
Yes.
McDonald's. And he almost tanked it in the beginning because he was, you know, he overestimated his cost and wasn't making enough money. And then you have the Colonel. Colonel didn't get KFC going until he was 65 years old.
I remember
Failed
that. Yes.
failed numerous times. And the Colonel was able to enjoy the success of KFC, I think, for a solid decade before declining and then obviously passing away. But you know, it took him. I mean, the guy failed at everything. He took his last launch at KFC and decided that if this doesn't work out, he made the decision he was going to commit suicide.
Right.
And that was after I think like whatever, this number's not exact, but like literally 1,000 times of posing that chicken recipe to other investors or restaurants or whatever the case might be to try to get it off
Right.
the ground. So perseverance.
So,
Okay.
Keith, looking back, you will find that restaurants were at every step of human culture, right? But they mainly fed travelers and passersby. Going back to ancient Greece and Rome, one would encounter like taverns that served food to those who had reasons, to be away from their homes. America is the nation that gave the world the plane, the light bulb, but also fast food. at least in the form we know it today. The history of ready-made food is mainly American.
Absolutely, it is. You see that in The Founder. I always love the scene when they first hand him the bag,
I
right?
love
And
that
Ray
movie.
Kroc
Love
doesn't
it.
know what to do because they didn't have food wrapped in paper. And he's like,
Right.
"Well, where's my fork or whatever?" He's like, "How do I eat it?" He's like, "In your car at the park." Like they didn't even
I remember
understand.
that.
Yep. So, as much as fast food restaurants existed in Europe as a way of fast food, no one did a better job with this industry than America. The concept of small cafe dining might have started in Europe, but America brought it to life. We've discovered so many types of fast food. We began the idea of mass production, the promotion and marketing and course of ready-made food became popular worldwide. Darcel, who was on a couple episodes back, talked about that. She was working for that company on the other side of the globe in Southeast Asia that literally franchises that as soon as America has a concept, they buy it.
Boom.
Remember, I
Smart.
said they have
Smartest
the
business
last
people
Kenny
ever.
Rogers roaster. I'm going to Kuwait to get it. Love that chicken place. Uh,
Oh, wow. Keith, do you wonder what were the first food chains that became known and succeeded?
um, I have a little bit of what that might entail, but I think you're going to tell us.
I think, all right, man, I got you. Ready? Applebee's, Fridays, Wendy's, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, and McDonald's. All of them have a great background and are still operating today, not only in the US, but all over the globe. McDonald's is a name that is identified with what we know is as fast food restaurants.
I got a little bit nostalgia when you said Dunkin' Donuts. Not like I don't eat there today,
D&D.
but I was D and D,
D&D
right? Or
is
they're
my
just
fave.
Dunkin' now. But I was thinking about, remember the old school commercials like that? There you go. That's the culture that we talk about, American culture. Time to make the donuts. That old dude,
The guy with the
the guy
mustache.
with the mustache, right? Key and Q. We get him up there.
Yes, the guy with the stash.
So there he is, Christine. Fred. Time to make the
Oh,
donuts. What a great marketing campaign back in the
dude,
old
that guy's a
school day with the
legend.
old logos. I actually
He's a
remember as a
legend.
kid, I don't know how old I was, but Dunkin' Donuts running their marketing campaign that he was retiring. And it was like a whole countdown thing. I remember this. And then
Really?
I remember they did Good Day. I think it was Good Day New York, their Good Morning New York, one of those local ones, actually went to whatever Dunkin' Donuts where he was and like interviewed him, and they did like this whole big thing. Great
Oh,
marketing.
wow.
I mean, you see how
That's
well
great.
kids today will never know who this guy is, but it's
No.
in our head. I mean, I'll always think of this guy when I go to Dunkin' Donuts or Dunkin', whatever they freaking rebranded it as recently. But to
30
me,
year
that's
olds won't even know who this guy is.
no.
That's,
That
yeah.
we were like 11 or 12 when that guy
Yeah.
was
We were
gone.
kids. I mean, it's us and our parents and above that would know who Fred is.
Yep.
But millennials and Gen Z have no idea who Fred is and how much of a legend this guy is. They have no idea. So, Keith, so fast food was commercially organized when the McDonald brothers introduced the famous, ready for this, speedy service system and launched the fast food phenomenon that spread from North America to the ends of the world.
And how did they succeed to the benefit from the speedy service system? Again, back to the movie. Remember they were on the basketball court with the chalk? They were like rehearsing it. Pretty cool. This new system had mainly depended on speed, lower prices, and volume, right? So it was obviously designed to make money. To make the world simple, they wanted to serve their customers as instantly as possible. So they had to change the usual way of serving food, which leads us to the following question.
Did they follow a concept?
They certainly did. This was the beginning of a new era in fast food restaurants. They decided to introduce some innovations. They simplified the menu in such a way that customers did not need knife, fork, spoon, taste, or food. They replaced all crockery and glassware with disposable plastic cups, plates, and bags. So that I always thought that was very cool, and to speak to that scene that really illustrated that in the movie. How do concepts and designs help a brand grow? How do you build culture to meet the branding?
Well, I mean, we really have to think about it, right? So, what does branding really mean, right? So, here's a few ways, right, to define branding and to help develop a restaurant brand. Most important thing you need to have is a clear vision or concept of your restaurant. Okay. Very, very important. You need to create a mission or vision statement for your restaurant, and you guys need to live by that on a daily basis. Understand your positioning in the market and your competition. Very, very important, because now this is how you start to create your business plan. Develop a brand voice and tone for your restaurant brand, and use design, branding, meaning logos, merchandise, colors, and aesthetic to create a cohesive visual brand. Branding and marketing experts often use different definitions, which can be confusing. So, how do you explain what a brand identity is to someone who has no idea what it means? So, I mean, and I guess we're great to talk about this because you run Salted, and we have a marketing and web design firm, which does branding also. So you would be the one to give us some insight.
Well, the truth is that most people don't know how to define branding or really what the term necessarily means. So we would probably start off with a lesson in that. You have to have a clear vision for what you want to be. I think a good way to start off branding is to start off where you want to get to and work backwards. What that vision looks like, and sometimes to write the story up to it. Because sometimes some brands happen organically, and the branding becomes a story, like McDonald's, right? And that's what their brand has evolved, and that evolves as time goes on. You'll always stick to the core, but it evolves. Other chains, as we know, who have started off slow, just kind of wrote a story themselves, so to speak. So and they that's what the brand is. Like Outback Steakhouse, their brand is an Australian themed steakhouse.
Right.
I remember I used to work with this Australian woman. I was like, oh, she's like, do you ever think you'll go to Australia? I'm like, that's a long plane ride. I was like, but I've been to Outback Steakhouse, so it's like the same thing, right? And she,
Right.
she was like, what are you texting? Nothing like, but like, you know what I mean? So Outback's probably another example, probably a different concept that was like, we want to do an Australian style steakhouse. Now let's write the story and insert it there. Or Chuck E. Cheese is a brand. I don't think that Chuck E. Cheese evolved from a real singing and dancing guitar playing mouse. I'm just gonna say that. You know what I mean? They were like, we need that was a vision. So it's a lot of different ways, but it has to be done with intention, right? Lots of intention behind what they do. Um, one thing that's important when you aim at a modern concept of food branding is you have to increase interaction. What do I mean by that? You could, for example, create a video on how your products are being prepared, cooked, or served. You see a lot of that. You saw it in that one pizzeria that we helped out. Well, I don't think they did videos, but they were big. You set up all the LED menus boards and stuff like that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Pictures of food popping up, all that
Yep.
stuff. In that way, the power of video is so great. It can just be a few seconds to highlight a certain product or maybe other service that your place venue might offer, like catering or off-premise catering, things like that. If you want to create a successful restaurant concept, I always, and I'm going to end it off where I started. I admire Starbucks, right? There's a heritage behind it.
Yeah.
Um, you can read what Starbucks stands for. From the beginning, Starbucks started with the vision of a different type of company, a company that not only honored coffee and its rich tradition, but also offered a sense of human touch. Our mission is to inspire and cultivate the human spirit, or their mission rather, one person or one cup of coffee at a time and one neighborhood at a time, which is how they started. With every cup of coffee they offer, in addition to great coffee experience, they also promote heritage. Similar to when we worked for Pret, right? That
Yes.
was they were big into the service. They were big into they were
Organic when you can.
organic when you can. The
There.
human touch, they were huge. Remember,
Yes.
their barista was not, see, that's one thing they did differently. Their barista, they wanted him to almost be on stage conducting, I felt like, talking to the
Yes.
guests. People knew their barista. Starbucks never hit that mark, although they handle service well in their own regard. But that's something that I always enjoyed about them.
And Pret also pushed their coffee as fair trade.
Yes, I
Remember?
remember that. Yep.
Ethiopian fair trade coffee. It was
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But yeah,
Yep.
it was big. The different blends, and everybody had to be educated on it. And, we had to know where
Yep.
it came from and so on and so forth. So, yeah,
Got to know it came from the goats, right? Goats discovered coffee. Those crazy
that's it,
goats
man.
eating those damn coffee beans, going nuts out in Ethiopia 500 years ago. Or they ate, what is
Oh,
it? It
man.
starts with the C. They ate the casing off of the beans. I can't think of it. Whatever that stuff is called. It's red.
The cocoa.
Nope.
Cacao or something like that.
Cacao, something like
No?
that. They were trying to do stuff out of that too for a while. It became popular for like a minute. So with that, Christine, I think it's time we put a bow on this.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Behind the Counter. Please go ahead, subscribe, and like to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go ahead and visit us on Instagram and TikTok, and take a look at our website at www.dhhospitalitygroup.com. Until next week, we're out.
Like us on everything. Bye, everybody.